Hello and welcome to this webinar on coping with online classes. My name is Arya Majumdar and I'm the Dean of Admissions and Outreach at Jindal Global University. Thank you for joining us today. What we'll be doing over the next few minutes, perhaps the next 15-20 minutes, we will be talking about how you can cope with your online classes, what are the challenges that you might be facing, and how you might overcome these challenges. During this time, if you'd like to ask me any questions, please do ask them on your questions tab in the GoToWebinar app. After these 15-20 minutes of initial talk, I will then proceed to take questions from you guys. Now, these questions could be on anything starting from online classes to coping with being inside, cooped up at home for many days on end, to perhaps admissions processes at the Jindal Global University. Without further ado, let's begin. In his seemingly prophetic TED Talk on the next outbreak, Bill Gates alluded to this greatest danger posed to humankind as global epidemics. You see, when Mr. Gates was growing up, the greatest danger that humanity was up against was that of the nuclear holocaust. And Mr. Gates was told, his family was told, to build an underground nuclear bunker to ensure that if there was a nuclear holocaust, that they would be safe from it. Now, the threat of nuclear war doesn't exist anymore. Instead, we have a global pandemic. 5 years after this TED Talk that he gave in 2015, we are right in the middle of what may be termed as one of our greatest global crises since World War II. The current COVID-19 pandemic has taken the lives of over 100,000 people and has affected billions of people worldwide in some way or the other. Now, the immediate economic fallout of this pandemic involves the healthcare, travel, and hospitality and entertainment sectors. There are also other sectors which are also being affected. One such sector is that of higher education. Schools, colleges, universities are spaces of close-to-close, face-to-face learning and are prime locations for the spread of this contagion. As a result, education institutions around the world have asked students to stay at home while education continues in an online mode. So here we are, students and teachers talking to one another through the marvel of modern technology. But this mode of online instruction comes with considerable challenges. For example, in my classes at the Jindal Global University, I rely on a lot of discussion and back and forth between my students and myself. That seems to be a little diminished in online classes. Now, there are plenty of challenges for students as well. In today's webinar, we will address these challenges for students and hopefully come up with some tips to help you cope with online classes. There seem to be three major challenges in dealing with online classes, at least from the student's perspective. We as teachers, we have our own challenges that we are trying to manage as best we can. But let's look at the student's perspective. First, studying from home has become the new normal, and lines between school and home get blurred. Second, students find it very difficult to stay focused on their online classes. And the third is a sense of dissociation, of feeling of being away from everyone. Do you feel that you face these challenges too? If so, you might want to continue with this webinar. So let's tackle the first challenge. Now, this is the biggest challenge that we see, is that the entry of the classroom into our homes. What this means is the work that we do in school or college or even in the workplace is now part of our very personal lives at home. Classes are seen to be professional spaces, thoughtful and serious spaces which require our utmost attention. And at home, we tend to be relaxed, Netflix and chill, and as they say, we make ourselves at home. There seems to be now a merger between classes and home. How do we tackle this then? Here are 3 tips to do so. The first is creating a space. Designate a space within your room or your house where you will venture into only during classes or for doing homework. Now, this could be a corner, it could be a desk, it could be even outside your home. It's almost a given that you'll be taking classes on a laptop or on a mobile device. Because these devices are that can be moved around from place to place, it's important to have a designated space to take classes in. Now, designating this space within your room or within your house, where you will venture into only during classwork or during homework, it creates a routine. And we'll keep coming back to creating a routine and having self-discipline. It also establishes a pattern of staying in that space and aligning oneself to either schoolwork or college work while you are there. Now, this space, as I said, this space could be anywhere. It could be in your room, any part of your house, or perhaps even outside the house, as long as you are connected to the internet. The second tip I have in terms of creating an environment suitable for online study is to sensitize your family members. Sensitize your family members and those around you about your school routine. When do you have classes? When do you want to designate some time to have to work on homework? And ask them to respect the fact that you are actually attending classes, even though they're online. Now, of course, your parents or your well-wishers or your family may not know whether you're actually watching a video, which is from Netflix or Prime, or are you watching a video of your faculty member, right? But then you must convince them that, look, I'm actually doing classes. This is the work that I'm doing. As they understand what work you're doing in terms of your online classes, they'll come to respect and they'll be sensitized to your online classes even more. Now, the reason I'm saying this is because most distractions come in the form of sounds and conversations, even when your eyes are glued to the laptop screen or your mobile device. It is important that sound levels within the house be kept down to a minimum while you're trying to concentrate. This also helps in focusing on what your teacher or your faculty member is trying to tell you. Now that you've established your workspace and you've sensitized your family members as to your classes, it is now time to establish a routine. Now, this is my third tip. What would you do when you have regular classes? You'd get up in the morning, brush your teeth, have breakfast, have a bath, put on your clothes, and then go off to class. Why not do the same thing with online classes? Pretend that online classes are actual classes. The reason I'm saying this is it's important for your body and your mind to understand that you are entering into a state of study as opposed to a state of play or a state of entertainment. There are plenty of tools to help you become more productive as well. For example, we are using GoToWebinar as an app. I'm assuming that you would be taking classes on Zoom or MS Teams or Google Hangout or any number of apps and softwares that are available in the market today to take online classes. Most of these apps have some functionality which enables you to connect your phone calendar or your laptop calendar to these apps. You could sync your phone calendar to the calendar of the app that you're using for online classes. This could help you this could remind you of classes actually taking place, to remind you of doing homework, and so on and so forth. So these were the 3 tips I had to establish a routine, to establish a space, right? The second challenge that we see in our students is the ability to stay focused. Do you have problems in staying focused while your faculty member keeps talking about whatever she or he is talking about? You are not alone. In class, when we are actually in physical classes, we see other students around us. They are listening intently, they're working intently, and this creates a sort of a positive peer pressure, which forces us to stay focused. Think of this as if everybody else is listening in, I should listen in as well. Think of this as a good side of having a FOMO. But without your classmates around you now, how do you stay focused? I have 2 tips. As I mentioned earlier, it's important to minimize distractions. And it starts with creating a workspace for yourself, which is quiet, and creating it in a corner of a room where you will go into only when you're ready to study. There are other ways to stay focused and minimize distractions as well. Now, right now, you're watching this on your mobile device, or you're watching this on your laptop. You might have other windows open. You might have a WhatsApp chat going on. When you are studying, when you're in class, close your chat windows, your other internet tabs, and your online games while working on online classwork. Turn off notifications as well. Now, notifications will get you distracted, whether it's incoming messages or the news that your giants are ready for battle in the Clash of Clans. Think about it. When in school or when in college, you're probably not allowed the use of a mobile phone while in class. So why would you want to use your mobile phone while you're having an online class? Why not keep it silent in the next room? Second, take notes, but don't take notes while tapping it out. Logistically, it's very hard to switch back and forth between windows on your laptop, which is why I would recommend taking notes with a pen and paper. The reason also is that the online classroom, it also reduces the ability for making eye contact and soft social cues. For example, when I am explaining something to my students, at some point of time, I get some reaction from them, which is completely non-verbal, that they actually understand what I'm saying. Now, I can't gauge the reactions of my students when they are behind a laptop screen. Now, the space between the teacher and the student, between what is being said and in terms of comprehension, in terms of online classes, is greatly reduced. But if you have a pen and paper and a good old-fashioned method of taking notes, this will help you internalize the points that are being made and to stay focused. So that was the second challenge that we have in terms of staying focused. A third challenge, and this is possibly more of a psychology challenge than anything else, is that we see with many students is that there's a sense of being away from school, their friends, their teachers, and who may be available to have a chat with them at any point of time. And they're away from all the other activities, that come with being in an educational environment. Now, I can't promise you that you'll get to play in your school playground or jam with your college band anytime soon. But there are other meaningful ways to connect with your classmates and teachers within the boundaries of the online class. Almost all the platforms on which online classes are taking place, whether it's Zoom or MS Teams or Google Hangouts or even GoToWebinar, all of them have a chat option. Use this to engage with your fellow classmates. Ask questions from your teacher or even offer feedback of your own. Second, don't be afraid to ask for additional help, whether it's in the form of additional resources or additional questions. Ask your faculty members, ask your teachers for videos and articles to drive home the lesson. In that, what you're doing in that case is you're telling the teacher that, look, what you said was great, but I need some more help. What that tells the teacher is that this person is actually engaged, is actually interested in the class. Going back and watching videos or reading on the topic discussed has been found very helpful for students to learn in their own time. What we have in India right now, and perhaps across the world, is a form of synchronous learning. What synchronous learning means is that it is only when the teacher is teaching that the student is learning. We need to move from synchronous to asynchronous learning. Until we do so, we will have to complete our classes in the scheduled time. Now, when we move to asynchronous learning, students should be able to take up or view classes or attend classes at any time they choose. This keeps in mind, we keep in mind, students have different sleep cycles perhaps, have different attention spans, and therefore should be allowed to take up classes as and when they feel that they are in the best position to do so. Finally, the third tip I have in terms of staying connected with your friends and your teachers is participate. Participate in classes. Ask a lot of questions. Because you see, learning is always going to be a two-way process. And with online learning, more of it is on you to learn the content than the instructor. So what you need to do is work to learn the contents of your textbooks and reading materials. Ultimately, you can only get out of online learning what you put into it. And in the end, you've got to step up and be responsible for your own learning. As they say, no one can make you learn anything. It's you who has to learn yourself. Now, the teacher can only be a guide or a mentor or a helper. A teacher can only show you the way, but ultimately, you need to walk that path. And I think this lies at the core of all that we've talked about today in terms of being responsible for one's own actions. I hope by now you've realized that your learning is now more in your hands than ever before. As a result, how you self-discipline and how you take responsibility of your actions are going to be key in terms of what you get out of online classes. Now, without the social environment in a school or a college that you're used to, you'll have to turn from passive learners where you're just sitting in a classroom and receiving instruction to more active learners where you yourself are actively involved in the process of teaching and learning, where you're reading up on what is being taught in class in advance, you are watching videos that are related to your class, and then you're using that knowledge to engage with your teacher, to engage with your classmates. So it's on you now to step up. But of course, with all of this responsibility comes more freedom, such as having home cooked food with your family for every meal. So that really was the gist of what I wanted to say today in terms of coping with online classes. I agree that there are many, many challenges that students face all the time in terms of creating a space, in terms of distractions, in terms of staying focused, and in terms of staying connected as well. I hope you found this. I hope you found this useful so far. But before we conclude this talk, and then we can move on to the questions, and I'm seeing that a number of questions have come in so far. I'd like to remind ourselves of something, of privilege. The fact that I can talk to you using a laptop means that I have internet, I have a laptop, I have electricity. The fact that you are able to hear me, you're able to see me, means that you have all of these things. The fact that I can sit in a room with the door closed and with no interference and no disturbance says that I am privileged enough to live in a residence that allows me this space. Many of us don't have this space. Many of us may not have access to the internet all the time. For them, the challenges are far greater. So if you can log into a webinar and stay focused on this webinar for now nearly 20 minutes, then take a moment to check your privilege and to feel grateful for the privileges that have been given to you. With that, I'm going to conclude this talk and I'm going to move on to the questions. If you have any questions about this talk or anything in general in terms of learning or JGU, now is a good time to ask. All right, I'm going to skip a few questions that are JGU specific. We'll come to that later. I have a very good question from Bishwajit Bishash. Do you think post-COVID-19 online courses would get legitimacy from the UGC and other policy bodies, unlike distance learning courses? Well, Mr. Biswas, I should tell you that the UGC and the Ministry of Human Resource Development have been working towards an online education platform for many years. It has been live, and a number of universities contribute to this online platform. It is called SWAYAM. That's SWAYAM, SWAYAM, which is the government's homegrown online courses platform. I believe that the MHRD is considering, or at least a committee that has been constituted by the Ministry of Human Resource Development. The committee is considering reopening of classes from or the new academic year from September onwards. However, this is all based on news reports, and we don't know yet. My point is that it is early days yet, and we do not know whether the UGC or other policymakers will allow entirely online courses in a larger manner than we've seen before. It must be noted, though, that the UGC already has some regulations for online courses, and universities that meet these requirements for online courses they are able to deliver and administer online degree programs which are recognized by the UGC. However, if you're considering taking up a degree that is completely online, perhaps in the next academic year, please ensure it's from a university that has been accredited by the UGC, or please ensure that the program itself is legitimate. Karanveer Bhatt asks a fairly connected question. He says, in your opinion, do you see the shutdown carrying on further beyond August? And what could that mean for New Year students looking to move onto the campus? Now, Karanveer, thank you for that question. Like I mentioned in the response to the earlier question before, we are seeing that we know for a fact that the MHRD has ordered all schools and colleges to be shut until May 15th. Now, I've also mentioned that the committee under the MHRD is about to recommend, or will possibly recommend, that the new academic year be pushed back to September. However, I would like to adopt a wait and watch approach. Now, at OP Jindal Global University, of course, we are prepared for any contingency. As far as we are concerned, unless a government order comes to us, unless a government intervention occurs, and the government tells us to postpone the new academic year, as always, we will begin our academic year on the first week of August in 2020. But having said that, we are keeping a close eye on developments, and we're keeping a close eye on the MHRD and the UGC, and we're waiting for further instructions for them, depending upon when they feel that universities and colleges and schools should open up. So right now, that's a very open-ended issue, and we have to adopt a wait and watch approach. Sorry. Dr. Kushnam PN has a very interesting question. How far are the academic institutions ready to access all students and learners online, given their huge differences in terms of income and access to online facilities and infrastructure? Well, Dr. Kushnam, it might interest you to know that many universities across the world have opened up a number of their courses, which are online now, absolutely for free. So I think, and a number of these universities that have opened up their courses are very, very expensive and one would think very, very prestigious. For example, if you were to go to Coursera or edX or Udacity, you'd find that a lot of these courses offered by universities are free. And you'd be able to go through these courses and be able to get a certification by paying no money at all. However, I think there needs to be a little more analysis into how universities can deliver courses online. There's a certain cost involved in terms of delivering, entire programs online, and there needs to be some debate or some discussion between universities and the government, perhaps, to find out whether or how, in fact, these courses can be made more and more affordable. But to answer your question, I think a number of academic institutions are ready to at least give out some of their programs or some of their courses for literally free online. I have another question from Soumya Raman. Talking from a sociological point of view, do you think that such a change in educational methodology will have its effect in the efficiency of the learning process? More specifically, will it have a negative effect? Now, Ms. Raman, thank you very much for that very, very interesting question. Right now, millions of students and millions of teachers have been thrust into, I would call, a forced online teaching mode. Many of us have had very little experience in teaching online. And therefore, what we're trying to do is convert what we know about teaching in classrooms. We're trying to convert that into teaching online. But that doesn't necessarily work all the time. And people who've been teaching online for many years, they will tell you that there are certain techniques that can be adopted to help students learn better while they are teaching. Now, that could be the subject of another webinar, which we are intending to do perhaps next week. Now, whether or not this will affect the learning process, absolutely. But we must keep in mind that humans are highly adaptable not to environmental changes, but to social changes. So far, all of us have been either teaching or learning online for at least a month now. And by now, we've figured out we should have started on the path to figure out how best to teach or learn in an online mode. So what we are doing right now as teachers and students is we're adapting to this change. Over time, we will probably figure out what works best for us. Now, whether this will have a negative impact, no one can tell. However, as I mentioned in my webinar, in my talk earlier, if the students themselves are self-disciplined and they take responsibility for what they are learning, I have a feeling that that online education could actually bring a positive benefit to these students themselves. All right. Shreyas JS asks a very interesting question amongst the many that he has asked. He asks, will the new online learning bring changes to the student evaluation process? Now, Shreyas, when I was growing up in Calcutta and I went to school and college in Calcutta, all of our exams were sit down in an examination hall. You're given a question paper and an answer script, and you have a certain amount of time to answer those questions. Now, things have changed since then. And now we find that a number of students or a number of courses across the world, it's not just in India, across the world, students are being able to take home their examinations. Now, what does that mean in terms of taking home an examination? What it means is it gives the student ample time and ample resources to figure out how best to answer this question. Now, if we are teaching online, it's most likely that we will also be assessing online. Now, the methodology of assessment that has been invoked for so many years, which is get into an examination hall, here's your question paper, here's your answer script, answer as many questions as you can, and don't look into somebody else's answer script, right? That has been the norm so far. In case of online assessment, that will have to change. What we will be looking for in online assessment is not whether the student can remember everything, because that's really what most examinations nowadays still do. That you're asking a student, do you remember what is the formula for, let's say, tan theta by cos theta, right? If you remember that formula. But we will have to move on from there. We'll have to move to a place, or we'll have to move to an assessment system where we're not checking or we're not questioning the student's ability to remember, but what we're doing is testing the student's ability to analyze, to grasp an important problem and to solve that problem using all the resources, the entire internet that is available to the student. So to answer your question, I think that if we are doing online learning, there will be changes to the student evaluation process as well in the long run. On a slightly off topic, Pavan Tallada asks that Zoom is an unsecured platform for online. Yes, there have been considerable reports, including I think a Government of India directive that came out saying that Zoom is unsecured and one should not use Zoom. But I think in response, Zoom has come up with a number of security features, which if you take a look at Zoom's FAQs and help pages, you should be able to figure it out for yourself. For example, if you are using Zoom and if you are the host of the meeting, once people have entered the Zoom meeting or the Zoom classroom, you can lock the meeting, preventing anyone else from coming in. All right, I'm still looking for questions that are directly linked to the webinar. I see a lot of questions about OP Jindal Global University, and fear not, I will answer them. All right. Okay, a very interesting question from Mohana Sarkar. Are these webinars hinting that we would have our first semester online? Absolutely not. Like I've mentioned before, OP Jindal Global University is prepared to take physical classes from the 3rd August onwards. That's the first Monday of August 2020, barring any government directive or government intervention, right? We are planning to have our semester beginning on 3rd of August 2020 as physical classes. These webinars are possibly the only way we can reach out to people. We can tell them that it's going to be okay. We can tell them that not to worry, that in spite of everything, we just have to patiently bear this period and just wait it out, right? Jayant Malhotra asks a pertinent question. He says, what if the topic being taught to us is not interesting? All right, this is something that a lot of students might resonate with. That, look, I'm really not interested in studying direct action day, right? In terms of the Indian independence movement, or I'm really not keen on figuring out the flashpoint of magnesium. So what if whatever the faculty member is saying is not interesting? Think about what you would do in a physical class. You can't move out. I mean, you could possibly, taking the teacher's permission, you could possibly move out, but your attention would wander. Here's a trick that I've learned over many years. If you find your mind wandering, whether it's in a physical classroom or an online classroom, let it wander. Let go. Think about something else. Go and finish thinking about it, but come back to class within a minute or two. Allow yourself that luxury of thinking about something else, just tuning out the professor just for a minute or two. However, be careful. Don't open another tab. Don't check your phone. Don't go on to a notification or a message or an email, right? What that will do is just prolong that period of you not being attentive. So if you find yourself being bored of the topic that you're being taught, you'll have to learn it anyway. It's probably going to be on your exam, so might as well learn it, right? But if you find your mind wandering, let it wander, but come back to the class that is being taught. Mr. Ashish Kapoor asks about class discipline. How can it be maintained by the teacher? Now, Mr. Kapoor, I work with a number of teachers in schools. I work with a number of teachers at the Open Global University, and we've gone online. We took about 48 hours to go online, and I completely understand what you're saying in terms of class discipline and how can we maintain class discipline in an online class. I'm given to understand that students can play all kinds of tricks, and which we may not be even aware of. So what we're doing is we're doing another webinar about a week from now, and that will be taken by somebody who has been doing online classes for many years now. And stay in touch with us, and we should be able to give you an invite link to that webinar as well. Senav Anand asks a question that is fairly hard-hitting. Senav, I love this question. He asks, how can online classes be spread to rural areas? Now, it is true that internet penetration in India is fairly low. But having said that, I believe that in the last few years, even in rural areas, there has been a surge in internet access. For example, after Jio came out with literally free internet for almost everybody, a lot of people got connected onto the internet, right? And there's been a boom or surge in the Indian population being connected to the internet. However, for a rural school, for students at a rural school to be able to afford mobile phones, forget laptops, even to be able to afford mobile phones or any other a cheaper device to access the internet, that could be prohibitively expensive. Now, until we recognize that online education is something that is only for the privileged class, somebody who can afford a mobile phone or can afford a laptop, I'm afraid that online classes will remain a distant reality for rural areas. One way of perhaps extending online classes to rural areas is to have community classes that are connected through the internet. But then again, these rural areas need to be connected to the internet to begin with, right? All right. Lakshay Puri asks a fairly technical question. How do I conduct discussion online when students are more? For example, I have about 60 students in a course that I teach. I teach mergers and acquisitions. I used to be a corporate lawyer. Now I teach corporate law. So in my class on mergers and acquisitions, I have about 60 students. And I have a rule in my class that everybody needs to keep themselves muted. And if you are going to be muted, if you want to ask a question, you don't need to ask my permission. You can simply unmute yourself and ask the question straight away. However, in terms of decorum and etiquette, do not unmute yourself when somebody else is speaking. If another student is speaking, you do not unmute yourself. You wait your turn, right? Another technique that you could use in terms of conducting an online discussion is to use the chat function. So we are actually communicating right now. I can see what you're writing, and I'm responding to you through video, right? Now, what we're doing here is actually having a discussion. What I can't do is have everybody unmuted right now, because everybody will start talking at the same time. So now if there are too many people, it's best to keep everybody muted and to communicate with them through chat, right? Okay, I don't see any other questions that are there are a number of questions we've already covered. For example, Yogesh Rai asks, do you see classes resuming in the near future, or students to rely on online classes for at least a year? We've already answered this question. We are hopeful that we will start classes on 3rd of August. All right. Let me look for a few more questions which are relevant to this topic, and then perhaps in the next 3 minutes we can go on to questions on OP Jindal. All right, so let me just, great. So Sainav asks another question saying, now I'm moving to questions relating to OP Jindal and related admission queries. How to prepare for JSAT, Sainav and others who have asked this question. There will be a number of sample question papers available at Pearson VUE's website. I would recommend that you take a look at them. Most of the questions in the JSAT are going to be related to quantitative and qualitative aptitude. Now, based upon which program you're applying to, the quantitative aptitude might be more or less. For example, our course in our program in the BA Economics does have some maths component to it, and will require a slightly better understanding of maths than, let's say, our course on BA Liberal Arts. So I would recommend, so this is a standard quantitative and qualitative aptitude test. Take a look at the sample question papers, and if you have any doubts, feel free to contact the admissions counselor for the program that you're interested in. All right. Soham Purohit asks, what is the fee structure for the BBA course? Soham, I'd encourage you to visit our website to take a look at the fees for our BBA course. I can tell you right now, though, that the BBA course is for the 3 years per annum. This is 4 lakhs per year, plus there is a residential fee of 2.4 lakhs per year. This comes to a total of 6.4 lakhs per year. Of course, we don't charge any GST. Shreyas asks, will CLAT be taken in our university? No, absolutely not. We do not accept the CLAT score at all. What we do accept in terms of our law course, for admission into our law course, is the LSAT India exam, which is administered again by Pearson VUE. And again, and please stay in touch with us to find out how to give the LSAT exam. Please get in touch with the law school admissions counselor to find out how to appear for the LSAT exam. Mr. Krish Bhagat asks a question. My son has made an application. Will there be a test and an interview? When will be able to get a confirmation about admission? Mr. Bhagat, obviously we are inundated with applications, but I can promise you that every application is being vetted, is being examined, and I would beg for your patience, and we will get back to you at some point of time. There have been a number of questions on when we are starting classes. We've already addressed this. OP Jindal Global University is prepared and committed to starting classes on the first Monday of August, that's 3rd of August 2020, in physical mode. barring any government intervention. So if the government tells us that no, we cannot start physical classes in schools and universities yet, then we will obviously have to adhere to the government's rules and their directions, and we will continue classes on an online mode, but again, only if the government asks us to do so. And this applies to all of our programs across the board. Animesh Shekhawat asks, how is Jindal handling the admissions process? Now, we have made a few changes to our admissions process this year. Typically, what we would require our students to do, our potential students to do, is to first fill out an application form on our website. If you're interested in filling up one now, feel free to go to admissions.jgu.edu.in. That's the admissions page for our website, or you can just go to our website and then go to apply now. You can start your application. So once the application has been completed, we then require students to appear for the JSAT exam, which is the Jindal Scholastic Aptitude exam, which can be taken at any time, anywhere in India and across the world. So we've tied up with Pearson VUE, which has a number of test centers across India and across the world. What you do is you apply for a registration for the exam with Pearson VUE, and you figure out when you'd like to take the exam. On the date of the exam, you travel to the test center and you give the exam yourself. Once that exam has been completed, you then have a faculty interaction. We get potential students to talk to our faculty members, and based on a combination of your exam results, your application, and the faculty interaction, as well as your class 10 and class 12 results, we may make an offer of admission to you. Of course, this is pending your class 12 board results. Now, this has been the standard process that we followed for many years. There is one critical change that we are making this year. The critical change is this, that you don't need to wait for the JSAT exam to get a provisional letter of admission. What this means is, if you complete your application, we can take you straight to the faculty interaction. Based on the application and the faculty interaction, we will then roll out, if the candidate is found suitable, we will then roll out an admission letter. However, this admission letter is conditional upon the candidate, the student, appearing for the JSAT exam at a later date. Now, this JSAT exam can be taken at any date after the lockdown opens until our last date of admission. We then also require the class 12 board results. I agree, this year the class 12 board results are going to be declared fairly late. Again, I want to assure every one of you that's listening that we are willing to wait. We understand the various issues that are being faced by you in terms of even getting hold of your mark sheets or completing the application process. So what we're trying to do is ensure that the admissions process into OP Jindal Global University, this year at least, is going to be completely online. We are also in advanced talks with Pearson VUE to figure out a way where you can sit at home and appear for the JSAT exam. You heard me right. You can sit at home and appear for your JSAT exam. However, we're still working on that, and you will, if you are interested in one of our courses, I would encourage you to apply now so that we can get back to you when you can sit for your JSAT exam online. So, long story short, we have removed the requirement of the JSAT exam and the class 12 board results from our admissions process. We are willing to roll out admission letters for candidates found suitable. However, these admission offers are conditional upon the student appearing for the JSAT exam at a later date and providing us with their class 12 board results at a later date. Again, we are happy to wait. All right. Deelanshu Tutleja asks, if we have not got our class 12 results, can we join the college? Absolutely, you can. Again, if your board results have not been declared by the time our classes start, we're happy to take you on board pending your board results. Now, if again, for an unfortunate student who maybe has not cleared his boards, they will not be allowed into a college in any case. and therefore they will have to leave. But like I've mentioned earlier, if you go through the application, the online application, and you meet with the faculty member through Skype and have an interaction through Skype, again, we are willing to roll out our admission letters, our admission offers, pending JSAT and the board results. All right. There are some other questions. Does OP Jindal plan on online classes for the new first year students, given the fact that both have been postponed indefinitely for the time being? Again, Shrey Babeja asked this question. We've repeated this repeatedly, barring any government intervention. All right. All right, Netra Gopal Krishnan has asked a question that is fairly similar to what we've already answered. Okay, Chaitanya Bali asks a very pertinent question relating to co-curricular activities. Does co-curricular activities have an impact on getting an acceptance at JGU? Yes, it does. We are looking for well-rounded students who will be able to contribute not only in the classroom, but also outside the classroom. It might interest you to know that we have about 55 odd student clubs and societies, and all of which contribute to a very vibrant co-curricular life on campus, starting from music to dance to sports to social service to performing arts to theater, you name it. In fact, our sports facilities are possibly one of the best in India. We've got 2 football grounds, we've got a cricket ground, we've got a volleyball courts, basketball courts, tennis courts, and even an Olympic-sized swimming pool. So we do promote a lot of co-curricular activities. I myself, I'm the faculty director for the Music Society, and I can tell you that the Music Society at JGU does put up a number of shows and does open mic nights and does karaoke nights. And I can tell you that having some kind of co-curricular activity on your application will definitely help your chances at getting into JGU. All right. We've talked about new admissions, online classes. Okay. Ashima Singh asks a directed question on the online exam for PhD in international affairs. Yes, we do have a PhD program, and in terms of the online exam, again we're trying to work on the online exam to be completed. We're working with our partners to see if we can do an exam that is proctored from your homes. And again, Ashima, if you are applying to us for your PhD, I'd recommend that you stay in touch with us, and we should be able to give you some confirmation as to whether or not you can sit for that exam online, anytime soon. Okay, this is a related question, or not, a question related to the original webinar topic. We missed out on it earlier. Tanya Gupta asks, my question is, which online websites offer the best short-term courses that one can do in a time like now, which are certified? Now, Tanya, there are a number of platforms that offer a wide variety of courses. I would recommend that you take a look at edX, that's EDX, or you take a look at Coursera, or take a look at Udacity. You could also take a look at Upgrad. Upgrad, in fact, is an Indian company with whom we are also partnering, and we're about to start an online LLM in corporate and financial law and an online MBA in digital finance and banking. Now, I leave it to you to figure out which short-term courses are interesting to you. Again, there's no one-size-fits-all solution, and I've long believed that you should pick a career or pick a profession or pick a course or pick a program that you are interested in. There's no point in somebody telling you that, oh, because of the coronavirus pandemic, medicine is going to be in high demand. Sure, it's going to be in high demand, but are you going to be happy about it? Is doing medicine or pharmaceutical research something that makes you happy? Which means that, Tanya, look for short-term courses that you think you'd be interested in. And there's a wide plethora of it in the platforms I just mentioned: edX, Coursera, Udacity, and Upgrad. All right. Tejas Suresh Rao asks a completely off-topic question which I thought was slightly funny. At the time of lockdown, where do we invest our money? Tejas, I wish I could give you that answer. And if you know that answer, let me know. I am not a stockbroker. I am not a financial um, expert, but my money is safely in my bank where it belongs. All right. We've talked about new admissions. Lakshay Puri asked a very pertinent question on um, on the original topic of the webinar. What happens if labs are needed for the education environment? How can that be addressed? Now, frankly, Mr. Puri, I don't think that can be addressed through online courses. For example, if you are a science student, you do require access to a physics lab, a chemistry lab, or a biology lab. And the lab component of the final exam is a critical one. Now, I cannot see how students can be able to replicate those lab experiments in their homes. And frankly, without supervision, without adequate and trained supervision, I don't think it is wise to carry out lab experiments at home in any case. For that matter, if online classes are going to continue, then we will have to make changes to the way we teach certain subjects, and we will have to make certain changes in the curriculum in what we teach. For example, some aspects of our curriculum, particularly in the STEM subjects, can be taught only through learning by doing. And if you can't do the things that you're about to learn at home, then perhaps that could be shelved for a later date. My point is that you can't recreate a lab environment at home. It is not safe, primarily because there's no supervision. Having said that, perhaps the curriculum might need a revisit to figure out what kind of other things we can teach apart from what is being taught in a lab. All right. Wow, there's been a lot of questions on Jindal. Residential. Let me ask a few. Let me answer a few questions. Answer a few questions back on the admission side. Anil Agarwal asks, what is the residential fee? Mr. Agarwal, it's 2.4 lakhs per annum, payable on a semester basis. This includes food, boarding, lodging, and as you must have noticed on our website already, we have a state-of-the-art infrastructure in terms of our campus, running hot and cold water 24/7, centrally air-conditioned classrooms and hostel rooms. And for those of you who are considering, coming to Jindal at some point in time, you should know that we have an 18 megabytes per second. That's 18 Mbps internet speed. Mridul Vij asks whether liberal arts can boost our career. Well, Mridul, I'm glad you asked this question. Now, I'm going to give you a few names, and I want you to figure out in your head or guess in your head what kind of courses they would have taken up. Let's start with Steve Jobs, founder of Apple. Jack Ma, the founder of Alibaba. And Elon Musk, the founder of Tesla, SpaceX, and Hyperloop. Can you guess what their first degrees were? If you answered anything else apart from liberal arts, you're wrong. All three of them, Steve Jobs, Jack Ma, and Elon Musk, all of them had liberal arts degrees. They didn't have degrees in computer science to begin with. Studies have shown that while engineers and STEM graduates tend to get a higher salary when graduating, their first job after graduation, they tend to get a higher salary. People who took up liberal arts in college tend to have a higher salary in their 30s to 40s, which means that a liberal arts degree, statistically speaking, a liberal arts degree should be able to give you a better career in the long run rather than a STEM subject. Now, don't get me wrong. I have nothing against science, technology, engineering, and medicine. And I wanted to be a science student. I want to be an engineer myself at one point in time. But studies are showing that people who have a liberal arts degree tend to be able to manage people better, tend to be able to communicate better, tend to be able to galvanize resources and arrange and align those resources in a particular direction better, which means that taking up a liberal arts course could mean that you have a better career than what you would have had as an engineer or a doctor. Okay. There are a whole lot of questions, and we're quickly running out of time. We've got literally 5 minutes left, and I'm trying to figure out. Chaitanya Bali again asks a very pertinent question relating to the law admissions process. Can law students get a conditional offer prior to getting the LSAT exam? The simple answer is, Mr. Bali, absolutely not. Fortunately and unfortunately, the law program at the Jindal Global University, as well as the architecture program, are governed not just by the UGC, but are also governed by their own governing councils. For example, the law program is subject to the regulations of the Bar Council of India, and the architecture program is subject to the regulations of the Council of Architecture. Both of these councils mandate that an all India exam has to take place before we can roll out offers. So for the law entrance test, for entrance or admission into the law program at the Jindal Global Law School, you'll have to wait until your LSAT results are out. All right. Let me try and ask. Let me try answering a question of somebody whose question I haven't answered before. Khwaish Kumawat asks, does the university provide any scholarships? Absolutely. A large number of our students are on some form of scholarship or the other. Our scholarship process is based upon two things. One, the overall performance of the student, and second, the need of the student. In other words, the scholarships that we give out are a merit cum means scholarship. So in terms of merit, we take a look at the student's performance in the application form, in the interview by the faculty members, the JSAT exam, the class 12 results, class 10 results, and the class 11 results. So that's on the merit side. On the mean side, we take a look at your parents' income tax returns, and we put them together and we figure out whether or not a student is eligible for a scholarship or not. All right. Aditya Varshne asks, what is this faculty interaction? Well, Aditya, when a student takes up admission at JGU, that student becomes a part of a larger family of other students and faculty members as well as staff. Now, this faculty interaction is a mechanism by which we assess whether the student would be a good fit for the program that they're entering into, whether they have the right skills, whether they have the right attitude, whether they have the correct outlook in approaching the program. For example, there was one student who in his application form had some very particularly disturbing and very fundamentalist views on politics. Now, the question is that whether or not that student will be open to other opinions as well, whether or not that student will be able to respect other people's opinions as well, even though he has very radical and fundamentalist ideas. So that is where the faculty interaction comes in. It is to better understand the student, and in the process of understanding the student, understanding whether or not that student will be a good fit or will fit into the greater family that we have, right? So that's the faculty interaction. We've answered a number of questions on scholarships. Vaishnavi Chaudhary asks a fairly important question. If candidates don't perform up to the mark after having admission letter, what happens then? What will be the consequences? Well, Vaishnavi, like I mentioned earlier, the admission letter will contain two conditions. That A, that you clear the JSAT exam, and B, that you meet the minimum eligibility criteria in your class 12 board results. Now, again, if any of these conditions are not met, well, you can guess what happens. If the condition is not met, the admission letter stands revoked or stands null and void, which means that students who got an admission letter from JGU should be incentivized or should have a feeling that they must prepare better for the JSAT exam and their class 12 board exam. This way, we hope that we can further inspire students to do better in their own class 12 board exams. All right. Other than academics, what we'll have in our university, asked Janvi Sharma. Janvi, I would encourage you to visit our website to find out all the cultural activities or the sports activities that we have on our campus. You could also follow our social media handles, particularly Instagram, Facebook, LinkedIn, and YouTube. We're all very active there, and we keep posting about stuff or events that are happening on campus or have happened on campus. I would encourage you all to follow our social media handles to stay in touch with us. All right, we're almost out of time. It's 5:01, and if you have any questions that you think so, I have all your questions here, and I'll try and answer as many of them as I can through email, and maybe we could stay in touch that way. And again, of course, thank you for joining us. And I know that a lot of you have many questions, but we are literally out of time. And I hope that you can join us in other webinars as well. Perhaps in future weeks, we could have direct one-on-one counseling sessions between yourselves as well as the admissions counselors. If you feel that you need a question answered immediately, right now, what I would recommend is take a look at our website. There will be the phone numbers of our admissions counselors and their email addresses. Feel free to drop them a line or give them a call. They would be happy to answer questions that are program specific. So if you're interested in a particular program, simply look up who the admission counselor is for that particular program. Their names, their contact numbers, and their contact email addresses are all there. Feel free to write to them. Feel free to call them. They are waiting. Having said that, thank you very much for being here today, and I hope to see you all again very, very soon. With that, this webinar has now come to an end, and I hope to be in touch with you over the next few months as well. Bye.